Hi, this is Brian Fields, amateur radio call sign W9CR, and this is kind of a funny thing that happened today. Let me backtrack a little bit. Today was Friday, December 10th. Florida Simulcast Group repping with Tampa Bay Hamwan. You know, it's the same thing. It's just Hamwan, Tampa Bay, or Tampa Bay Hamwan, whatever you want to call it. Hamwan. It's the important thing. We're out at the Tampa Bay Ham Fest, which was over in Plant City today, from 1 until 5. It's going on tomorrow on Saturday, the 11th of December. This is 2021 if you're watching this in the future. Well, it's a given you're going to be watching this in the future. I got to edit it and upload it to YouTube. Anyways, so we kind of use this as we're talking and hanging out at the booth. If you're a club, you get free space, or if you want to sell, it's like $10. Good space inside. The guys that run it are generally pretty good. It is the big Tampa Bay Ham Fest. It's not the best location, it's not the worst, but you get to see people we haven't seen in like 2 years because of COVID. The last one was really poorly attended. This one's looking a little bit better. Friday is always kind of an off day, so you know we're there. We got the Tampa Bay Hamwan dish set up. I mean, it's just a prop. You know, we're showing people what it is. We have some information. People come by, we talk. Mainly to interact with our other members that come by, because you know if you're a member, we'll program radio, or maybe not program your radio, but we'll show you how to do stuff. I got a computer there. One of the guys bought a radio, and we looked at it at the computer. One of the other things we're doing, which is really cool, is we set up. I want to say it's going to be one of the first Tetra repeaters in the United States. We had that up there, and we were actually demoing it at the table, not internet connected, but just demoing the Tetra side of it. I had a couple Tetra radios and doing all that. So it's pretty cool. So, and hopefully that's going to be on the air sometime when we are, you know, not ridiculously busy like we always are. So this is a funny thing. It happened about, I want to say 4:30, something like that. Actually, no, I'm looking at the timestamp right now. It was 4:40 in the afternoon when this went down. We had somebody come by the booth. I was sitting there, I was talking with one of our other guys, and he asked me some stuff. He said, "Oh, it's Hamwan, and you guys use 3 gigahertz." I said, "Oh, yeah, we're one of the big users of 3 gigahertz, you know, we're losing." And he starts asking, he says, "Well, hey, what are you doing when you lose the band?" And this person, I'll find out later, was N4MB, Mickey Baker, and he's a ARRL board director for the Southeastern division. So he sits on the ARRL board. And I kind of mentioned, I said, yeah, the ARRL response to the NPRM for 3 gigahertz was technically pretty good, but let's be honest, nobody cares at the FCC about any of that stuff. They're not going to read it. They're not going to give it any thought. And I mentioned, the lobbying that was done was pretty poor in my opinion, and the response, other than, hey, we responded to the NPRM and, you know, gave the college try, was not particularly good from the ARRL. I think I described it as pretty piss poor. And he got a little, I could see he got, I got a little offended by that. And I said, well, hey, the 10 gigahertz one, the Mimosa Networks back a couple years ago, and I said, I've responded to both of these. You can go look it up on the FCC. My comments are in there. ARRL actually did a really good technical response to that. I said, but I think the thing that saved us there was, some other reasons at 10 gigahertz. But anyways, I just said, hey, ARRL did a good response. I'm not just shitting on the ARRL, because even though that's kind of fun to do. So at this point, he introduces himself and he says, oh, hey, I'm N4MB. I'm a ARRL board member. I'm Mickey Baker. I said, oh, okay, cool. And he said, well, blah, 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 blah. We're talking about this. And he says, well, how are you guys going to pay for all this to move it to 5.9 gigahertz? I said, well, we can't even use 5.9 gigahertz in Tampa because of DSRC. So what's that? I said, well, that's the connected vehicle program. And, we got into some esoteric stuff. And basically, if they can see something, they say it's interference. And he said, well, that's not harmful interference. I said, well, try arguing. I said, so secondary stuff really doesn't matter because is whatever they see, and I started talking about, it's below their noise floor and all that, but it really didn't matter. So we can't use 5.9. I explained how, there we're using 5650 to 5700 megahertz, and, hey, we're just going to pay out of pocket. It's going to be a couple $1,000s maybe to replace all this stuff. And he said, well, hey, that's not good. And I said, well, yeah, but what are you going to do? And I mentioned, I said, we haven't been told we have to vacate it yet. and that other shoe hasn't dropped. And once we have to, we will. They're going to give us notice, and we'll change it out. Big deal. But we'll move to 5 gigahertz and probably have to deal with the interference and have some bigger antennas and pay for all that. I mean, anyways, so he says, well, you shouldn't have to pay for that. I said, well, yeah, that would be nice, but none of that's in the FCC thing. None of that's making the incumbents have to pay, or the new people have to pay to relocate the incumbents. And I talked about what Sprint did after they acquired Nextel. This is like 15 years ago now, when 800 megahertz rebanding was a thing. If anybody recalls that, just suffice to say, Sprint had to go around and buy a ton of brand new Motorola equipment for, I think, inflated prices, but whatever. Sprint paid a ton of money to move public safety around in the 800 megahertz band. I said, they're not doing that for ham radio, and it ain't going to happen. We get nothing, and that's it. And I said, ARRL did a pretty piss poor job, in my opinion. And I've talked to multiple directors about this, and I just said, hey, and they're like, well, the writing's on the wall for 3 gigahertz. And my opinion is I could give a fuck about HF radio, but take 3 gigahertz away. That's a band we're using in multiple areas. We have one major link, we have a couple other spur links, but one major link that is going to be very hard to replace with 5 gig just because of the nature of where we're at. And he says, well, you shouldn't have to pay for this. And then the other shoe drops. He brings up amateur radio digital communications. These are people that own, or I should say, held in trust, the 44/8 block, which is now 44/10 and or 44/9 and 44.128/10. They sold the top /10 of it off to Amazon. Wouldn't disclose this. We just found out about it when shit broke and stopped working. And I said, hey, look, that's theft by another name. I think technically it would be conversion maybe, but it's such a large amount of money. Look, it's not something we're going to get involved in. And I started going through. I told him, I said, hey, I used to be on the TAC committee. The way this was done with ARDC was, in my opinion, criminal. This was not something they had the right to sell. I'm not going to rehash the argument. I'm just going to say I'm done with ARDC. I'm not using their money. And pretty much everybody in our organization is of the same opinion. Even Seattle Hamland does not, again, I'm not going to speak for them, but my understanding is most of them don't want to take the money either, just because, it's not really free money. And I said, there's a lot of strings on it. It gives you a lot of, as soon as you take money from somebody, you're no longer independent. There's a lot, and not in a good way. Certainly, obviously, if you take money from somebody, they want to make certain you're using it right. But ARDC grants are a little more involved than that. And quite frankly, ARDC as an organization, and I went into this, is shady as fuck. And that's exactly what I said. I said they're shady as fuck, and here's why. And I went into the whole spiel and let them know, well, none of that matters, and blah, 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 blah. And, he then, at this point, it was kind of funny. He had, other shoe drops. He says, well, who are you? Because, I don't have a name. This is actually the same shirt I had on today. And I said, well, I'm Brian Fields. I'm W9CR. And like that, I can see he goes and says, oh, I know you. And I said, well, okay. Well, he starts talking about the response and everything. And I said, yeah, he's like, they're trying to make certain that they can use 3 gigahertz still and all this stuff. And I said, yeah, well, that response, this is the response they have in QST this month. I don't know if you can see it. My other camera's offline. But the ARRL continues its effort to preserve amateur radio's secondary use of 3 gigahertz band. I said, yeah, that's the most cucked thing ever. And, hey, I'm going to tell you the way that I feel. That is what it is. And I posted that, I think, on Instagram. I said, hey, here's a picture of what was in today's, December's QST. This is the most cucked thing ever. And he starts talking, again, this is N4MB, Mickey Baker, ARRL Southeastern Division Director for Florida here in, Southeast Division. He starts talking about FRC and FASMA and, starts mentioning that and blah, 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 blah. And, I'm not going to go into that. There used to be a group that did repeater coordination in Florida. Total corruption. I mean, it was just, is typical ham radio shit, you know. And you give somebody a little bit of authority over somebody, and it runs to their head, and it was just nutty. And there were people trying to make money with it, and it just was bad. I said, hey, the ARRL has some of these same issues on their board, you know, the censure, the previous director, and all this other stuff. And I recall the just as a life member of the ARRL, the absolutely offensive shit that I read in QST from the previous CEO about how, you know, this isn't right, that, you know, a board has to keep all their secrets and the members don't have a need to know. That's why the board is there. And, you know, every organization I've been in, and, you know, Fortune 500 companies, I'm like, yeah, you know what? This ain't GE making, you know, aviation engines or whatever. This is a members-driven organization. And members have a right to know. And I think, you know, stuff should be recorded, should be open. And I found as soon as you start making things not open and closed, well, that's how you get corruption. And, you know, he gets asked me, well, what's corrupt? And, you know, I'm just going back and forth. And he gets very combative at this point and says, you know, we went back and forth a little bit. I'm just like, hey, look, obviously I'm done talking here. You're free to leave. And I turn around, I'm talking to the other people. We had about 5-6 people at the booth, and I just started listening to them. And he's still standing there. I said, dude, you know, just, you know, mosey on down. He said, I'm not going anywhere. And starts talking about other stuff. And of course, I turn back around. I'm talking to him now. And I'm like, okay. And then I started talking about some others. You know, we went into something else. He says, well, you know, it's obvious you have psychological issues and must have antisocial personality disorder. I said, well, no, I just happen to be right about this stuff. And I've been involved in it, you know, more so than what you have. And that's my opinion. I'm not going to take the money. You know, dude, go away. Well, I'm not going anywhere. And he brings up his experience and blah, 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 and quite frankly, a bunch of other inconsequential shit. And as a method to illustrate the totality of this inconsequential shit that he brought up, I just said to him, I said, well, cool, I masturbated twice this morning, and other shit that doesn't matter. I said, that has, you know, the same meaning, basically, as to all this stuff you just said. And he got really offended by that. I said, look, dude, just walk away. I don't want you around here anymore. We're done talking. He then went unhinged and starts trying to talk to the other people and bring them into the discussion. They're having some sidebar about some other, I think they were talking about ion radios and DMR and some other stuff. And, you know, just whatever we talk about is hams, you know. This is a group of people that know each other pretty damn well. We kind of haven't seen each other in a while. We live far apart. So he's just refusing to mosey away. And so at this point, I pulled out my phone, and then the first part here, I did some vertical video. I switched very quickly to horizontal, and you can see him talking to a few other people at the group. And this is where the video starts. He was very tweaked that I was taking his video and did not consent to it. I said, well, cool. You're a board member of, you know, the organization representing several 100,000 amateur radio operators. I'm a life member of it. Dude, fuck you, we're in public. Come on. So, leave your comments below. I mean, I'm probably not going to read them. You know, I very rarely give two shits about what people say on YouTube unless it's really interesting or funny. And, yeah, keep in mind, my comments at this point to him are basically trolling him and fucking with him because I don't respect this person anymore. He's totally beyond all that, and I just want him to go, leave us alone. So the video starts at this point. I wish I had started recording it before so you wouldn't have this stupid intro, but anyways, this is Mickey Baker, N4MB, your ARRL Southeastern Director, uncut and unedited. Thank you very much.
If you will, then take money from the island. That's what I hear. We're the only.
We're connected via BGP. We're not an island.
Please don't record me. My likeness is my own. I wish you wouldn't record me for this conversation.
Well, you don't have to stand there if you don't want to be. Say hi.
I don't know how it got to this, but, you know.
The same way that the repeater coordination got to that. Yes.
He's part of the old school.
I'm not part of any school.
Well, that's kind of obvious.
I do have 6 coordinated repeaters.
And when I submit something, it takes a long time to turn around.
Well, the other organization took a long time.
But yeah, they did. They did.
And then
So there's no improvement. It's a net zero improvement.
No, but there's only one person also doing the coordination.
Oh, no, there's two.
A couple of them.
Yeah.
But
Well, from my own personal experience dealing with Dana Ladakis, I waited for years and years, never returned my calls, never returned my emails.
Okay.
So
So you're part of the new computer
I'm
coordination?
not part of anything. I went through this. I've got 4 ham repeaters over in Lakeland.
Again, I object to this recording.
I've got 4 repeaters over in Lakeland. And it's just because of shit like this. I don't have any club. I don't have any dues. If you've got a ham license, you can talk on all 4 of my repeaters. Just don't break the FCC rules.
And you pay for the site yourself? You rent the
I own the
sites?
damn towers. I own the repeaters, the coaxes, the hard lines. I don't take a damn dime from nobody.
And you
I
have-
don't even let people buy me a cup of coffee because that obligates me.
So when you pass away, those computers are still going to be there?
They're going to go away.
Yeah, the continuity.
They're not going into the trust. Because it would just be too complicated. My wife's not interested in it. I mean, if things change, I may change my mind on that.
So
If somebody
that's
wants
one
to
of our problems in
volunteer.
amateur radio is we don't care what happens after we pass.
Well, no, I care what happens when we pass, but I have 4 daughters that could care less about a radio or radios. Okay, I let my sons take over the business, and then secondly, my wife, she's not interested in it. So because I have these commercial radio towers, long-term leases, and a whole bunch of other stuff, it's going to go to a trust fund. And I could get.
So you're going to sell the towers?
No, I'm not going to sell the towers. No, I've got a 25-year contract with phone companies. I'm not selling this stuff. They want to give you 30 cents on the dollar for it. I'm not selling this.
Okay. So that goes your dollars. I
It's
get
going to go in a
that.
trust
That's your
fund.
personal wealth.
It's going to go into a trust fund, and the wife can just distribute a check every Christmas to the kids or whatever she wants to.
Do you have that many commercial tenants?
Yes.
And they're probably like Crown Castle. And,
No, Crown Castle is when they buy my tower for 20 cents on the dollar. I told them to go pack sand.
yeah.
Well, that's what they did to Sprint.
They didn't want to buy it. They wanted to steal it.
Are you guys all in Tampa Bay?
No, I live in Lakeland. I think he
I'm in
lives in
Tampa.
St. Pete. I think he lives in Tampa.
I'm actually in Plant City.
These 2 guys, I just met them today. Okay?
Hey, guys.
We collectively like this technology and we deal with it.
I understand, but 3 gigahertz is going to go away. And so
Again, we have,
So we'll
right
swap
now,
it out to
we
5
have
gig
one
when we
link.
go. I mean, it's
We have one link and it'll run. It's got my call sign on it.
Well, what does
It'll
go away?
run until
I mean, the FCC took 2 megs of 2 meters years back.
yeah,
You know, if they decide
2 megs of 220. You mean?
Hey, 220.
Yeah.
If they decide they can get, $30 billion for 2-meter ham radio, it'll probably go away too.
Well, I think that was 1988 they did that, right?
So,
That was a long time ago. I know that. Yeah.
is the UBS things that we're talking about?
well, they were going to go to UPS nationwide.
That was the ACSSB thing they were going to go to. Yeah.
But it never got off the ground for whatever. Something newer came along and obsoleted it.
Brian, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've seen you in action. I think the way that you took over the whole frequency allocation thing was brutal and ugly. Are you a lawyer?
No, I'm not. Are you?
Don't mistake passion for personality disorder because it's 2 separate things.
Well,
he tells me
apparently
you
he-
masturbated twice today.
That's his humor, right? Like
That's,
we all have our
that's-
own humor.
I
and
object to that because
That's
it's
fine.
sexual.
I understand
sexual
it.
harassment.
It's his humor, though. You know what I mean? And
Okay, I don't
You-
appreciate that.
Well, I don't appreciate your attitude, so we're even.
I think
Don't
we
you
can.
understand how telling somebody that you masturbated twice today is a problem? It's sort of an antisocial thing.
Well, not when you just walk
Are
away.
you a psychiatrist by chance? Are you qualified to define antisocial personality disorder?
Qualified to object to aberrant behavior.
Guys, ARRL says I'm an abhorrent.
Retired from what?
Retired from what? From a number of things. I'm an engineer and it's electrical. I was CIO of several different organizations,
Cool.
including government agencies.
And what do you do for the ARRL now?
I'm on the board of directors.
Okay.
I'm the Southeastern representative of the board of directors.
Isn't that the board of directors that prohibits people from talking about what goes on at board meetings?
That is not true.
Didn't they
Yes,
censure
yes.
somebody over that?
Do you have any questions about what has gone on in the board meeting? I'll answer. right here, right now.
It's not something I really want to get into. I don't want to talk to you any further.
I'm sorry. You asked me a question and about the board. I'm telling you that no, the board does not.
I think you're confusing a question with trolling.
I'm sorry.
This is the point. Don't just me. But this is the point of the conversation where I'm beginning to feel like a high school principal. Okay. I'm gonna go find,
To me, I'm just feeling like I'm
I'm
just
gonna
awkward at
go
this
get.
point,
I'm
so.
gonna go get me a soda.
It's better than Sizzler.
Do they still have Sizzler?
What's the other one? The Golden
But
Trough?
as for the three big stuff, like I said, my call sign's on it. It's from Tampa to St. Pete right now. We understand that when it eventually goes away, we'll replace it with something else.
Okay, so
We're going to continue to run it until we can't run it
the
anymore.
technical, what you guys are doing is, good stuff. I like it.
Right.
Of course, I don't know the people that are involved with it.
Sure. There's multiple people involved in it.
Good,
It's not
good.
just-
That's refreshing.
Bart would really like him.
Excuse me? Huh? Who doesn't like you?
I said Bart would really like you. I think you would really like Bart too.
Who's Bart?
Is that a
Bart,
club?
no, Bart is.
Is Bart who you masturbate with every morning?
Well, no, masturbation means that it's, Owenism. It's one-on-one. You can't.
What's your definition?
He's asking me about my masturbatory preferences.
Okay. Would you like to come here?
Yeah, sure. Come. I'll walk with you.
Well, at least he's gone.
It's not the first time I've seen this guy.
Bye.